Hello everyone, welcome to the LPCast, episode 7, the Let's Play cast, or the Let's Podcast, whichever you prefer. For this episode, we have another special guest with us, even though I've had a guest every single episode, but they're all special. We have MattsLPAdventures, or should I just call you Matthew?
Matthew's fine.
Alright. So, yeah, I guess if you're looking at this on YouTube now, you probably see the background too saying the Metroid Extravaganza, and I guess this is sort of a special episode. I don't know, maybe we'll see. But to start off with, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, Matthew?
All right. Well, my name's Matthew. Obviously, I'm a LPer on YouTube, known as MattsLPAdventures. I do a lot of Let's Plays on games I grew up with, and I absolutely love to death. And I also do other content on YouTube, like unboxing videos, reviews, and stuff like that. I don't do it as often as I do Let's Plays, but that's pretty much what I do. I like to share content of games that I absolutely love to death, and I want to try it. And I originally built my channel as more or less a dedication to visual guides because I've always appreciated visual guides when I started out, and I just wanted to help people, with games that they might have been stuck with. Because I'll give you an instance. I was stuck on one part in one of my favorite games, which was Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles. I was stuck on one part, and I've been stuck on that part for I don't know how many years, and I didn't realize it until I actually looked up a video on YouTube, and I wouldn't have gotten past that part. And that's really what one of the main reasons why I took inspiration. I originally started doing Let's Play. How I started was I found out that there was a recorder on an emulator I was playing, and I was like, wait a second, I could do a walkthrough. And that's pretty much what started it. And not only that, it's just grown into this wonderful hobby that I enjoy doing, and it's been nothing but absolute peace and stress-free and everything. And I use it for a lot of stress relief sometimes because my life is always busy and everything. And not only that, I've always enjoyed, helping people. And in fact, like a lot of the comments I get on my videos were just, saying, thank you for helping me. I was stuck on this part for a long time. And that makes me happy when I see those comments, because that's essentially what I started my channel out as, and I really enjoy doing it.
Oh.
And I'll continue to do so for as long as I can.
Oh, that's awesome. That's I say this about a lot of people I've had podcasts on, but this very genuine answer. It's very nice. I watched some of your videos. I'm currently watching your Metroid Prime Let's Play. And I gotta say, you do a lot of like good commentary. You're very like teaching in a way. Like you don't just crack fart jokes over a whole video.
No, I crack jokes every now and then, but I try to stay away from that type of commentary because I just frankly don't care for it as much.
Yeah, it's nice. I watch mostly stuff like Red Spray and stuff. The guys who do make jokes, but it's nice. I like your content too. It's very. Different might not be the best keyword, but it definitely has its own style, and I think that's very appreciative in a world where Let's Play has become kind of the same thing for every
Oversaturated.
Yeah.
Is that a good word?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's a good answer. Very nice. I guess my second question, or question. It's more like a discussion topic maybe. Are you playing any games at the moment, or do you have any favorite games?
I'm trying. That's the thing about me, and I've kind of pointed this out in a lot of videos that I've done. I have a huge, and I mean a huge backlog of games I'm going through at the moment. Sometimes I'll play like 2 or 3 games at a time. As of right now, like games I'm going through Bravely Default on 3DS right now.
Oh yeah.
I'm going through Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, because me and my girlfriend are actually playing through that at the same time because we never both play. She's a big Kingdom Hearts fan, but she's never played Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep.
Huh.
So I've never I just started playing Kingdom Hearts game like over a year ago when the 1.5 HD remix came out. I never played it because I didn't grow up with a PS2. I grew up with a GameCube.
Ah,
So
same here.
um I didn't play a lot of PS2 games, but when I got my PS3, I started, saying, "Oh, let me try playing some of these PS2 games that everybody says that are really good." And I found some really good gems out of them, that's for sure. I was
Hmm.
like, "Well, why didn't I play? Why didn't I get a PS2 when I was younger?" But
Yeah.
you can't change the past, right?
No, that's true.
um,
Absolutely.
I'm playing through that. I'm playing through Bravely Default, and uh, I'm playing through right now. What was it? I think it was. I'm just started playing Animal Crossing, New Leaf.
Oh yeah, the 3DS one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was like my first Animal Crossing game, and I was like, "Oh my gosh," because
Oh.
I always liked playing Harvest Moon when I was younger,
Hmm.
and I was told that this is practically that, but you don't do farming stuff. And I played it, and I couldn't put it down. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is actually kind of fun."
Yeah, that was my reaction with the New Leaf as well. I mean, I played other Animal Crossing games before, but I don't know, I never really like got stuck with them. But New Leaf, I was just like, oh god, this is freaking amazing. And I played New Leaf so long, and I haven't touched it for a while, so I'm afraid that my village is like messed up.
But you can always change the time back when you stop playing. Just remember the date.
I don't think I remember the date, but that's a good tip, I guess, if you want to go back in time.
So don't lose your villagers, don't lose everything, and don't lose progress.
Hmm. Definitely. I think I don't know if I told this story before, but when I had there was an Animal Crossing for the DS, Wild World, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I like saved money for like an entire month, which I don't know, that might not be sound like too much, but I was a kid and I didn't really have a job. I did chores around the house, stuff like that. But and then I got Wild World, and I played it for like a couple of days, and then I just started doing time travel stuff. I don't know. I didn't really have the attention span to actually like develop myself, develop the village back then. But
Yeah.
as a young adult or an adult, whichever, New Leaf is really really soothing, relaxing, great game. Definitely, a lot of fun.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I'm really enjoying it, and this is my first Animal Crossing game I played. So,
Yeah. Speaking of like PS2 games, do you have any PS2 recommendations?
um, I can definitely recommend. I mean, like it's not just PS2; it's on other game consoles too. But Okami is really good. I
Hmm.
really love Okami.
Okami is the.
It's kind of like a Legend of Zelda, but
Hmm.
different.
Yeah, yeah. I played some Okami. I never finished it, but I've seen playthroughs and stuff.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a very beautiful game, definitely. Uh,
Another game I really like is Shadow of the Colossus. That's probably one of my favorite PS2 games.
that's also one of those that's like it's very unique in a sense. Like it does storytelling in a different way, and I really like it. It's very immersive and atmospheric. I,
Hmm.
I guess if you want to do keywords like that, if you're gonna market Shadow of the Colossus, you can use those words.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and well, I mentioned it earlier. I actually really enjoy Kingdom Hearts. That's another PS2 game. That's really
Hmm.
good.
Yeah. I played some. I played the 3DS Kingdom Hearts, which I really liked. I have not played any of the PS2 ones. I might get around to that. I've been meaning to, but I don't know. I really like the 3DS one.
Yeah, it's really good.
Hmm. Have you played the 3DS one?
Not yet. I'm trying to go in order because apparently story is a big thing. So I'm trying to go in order. After I beat Birth by Sleep, that's the next game in the list. Actually, no, I gotta watch recoded
Hmm.
cutscenes, whatever. But after I do that, after I finish 2.5, 3D will be the next one that I play. So,
Yeah, it's really good. I only bought it because it had Neko from The World Ends with You, which is
mhm.
like one of my favorite DS games.
Hmm.
which is really great. Um, I guess we could get into like the sort of main topic of this podcast that I've been preparing for,
Hmm.
because looking through your channel, I see you play a lot of like Metroid games,
Hmm.
and
Uh,
I am a gigantic Metroid fan, and I've always sort of wanted to have like just this huge like discussion about Metroid.
Metroid.
Yeah.
I
So yeah, well, I guess to start off, do you have a favorite Metroid game?
Now that's a hard question for you to
Mm-hmm.
ask me because I've gotten questions asked, say, "What's your favorite Metroid game?" And it's just like I have to choose. I
Well,
have to choose. Okay, well, if I had to choose, like honestly, if I had to give you an answer, it'd be almost a three-way tie when it comes to that.
uh-huh.
Uh, just for record, I'm gonna say this right now to everybody who's saying this, and I know this is blasphemy for saying, a person who likes Metroid. I have not played Super Metroid.
Um, that's okay.
Okay,
How do
I know that's
how do I hang
blasphemous.
up? I'm
I've not.
joking.
I know that's blasphemous for people who are say that they're big Metroid fans.
Mm-hmm.
I will play it eventually. I just got it on the virtual console, so I
Yeah.
do intend playing it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I have not played. I've not played Super Metroid. That's the only one in the whole entire series I have not played,
Oh
and
wow.
I feel bad that I'm saying that because that's regarded as the best.
It's
Um,
it's good. Well, I mean, it's really good. But honestly, I didn't play it until like a couple of years ago, actually. So I was late to that party as well. But
yeah. Well, I grew up with a Sega Genesis. I didn't
mhm.
grow up with a Super Nintendo.
Hmm.
My first game I played was Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on Genesis. So I guess you could blame my ignorance on that fact, on the fact that I was a Sega child when I was a kid.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
it's totally fine. Everyone has different childhood. This
but
is well, no.
back to your question
Uh huh.
about what's my favorite one. Like I said, it's probably a three-way tie between Metroid Zero Mission, Metroid Fusion, and Metroid Prime.
Uh huh. Yeah.
I can't choose which one I like more because they're all three of those games are really good. Metroid Fusion was my first Metroid game I played,
Same here.
and and I liked it because it was, I guess, in a way, like a lot more darker tone and scarier than the other ones. And I originally thought Metroid was a horror genre
Hmm.
when I
Wow.
first played it, but I played it and I loved it. I played it till I beat it. I remember playing in simple. One part I was stuck on for the longest time was when you got to Sector 4 for the first time
Mm-hmm.
and you had to go fight Hydra or whatever the boss's name is. Or
Yeah,
no,
but
Sirius. I'm sorry,
they
Sirius. His name is
yeah,
Sirius.
Ceres.
I don't know why I said Hydra. Thinking of someone else.
Hmm.
Sirius. You had to fight Sirius, and I couldn't get to his boss room. I couldn't figure out what it was until I saw a crack in a save room.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "You dirty sly dogs, you! I gotta go do. I gotta put a button there, and then I could go." And I was like, "Okay." And then after that, I think the next part I was stuck on was the the part when you go back to Sector 2, and you have to run away from the SAX because every time I tried doing that, I'd always
Mm-hmm.
die. It
Yeah.
wasn't until I was determined to actually get past that part that I had to do trial and error a lot with that one.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely same for me. I I don't think I got stuck on trying to find the Ceres, or the border snake, whatever.
yeah.
Uh, well, I mean, I thought it was kind of genius how they mark like one point on the map, but then the boss is actually in like another place. I thought that was pretty clever. It was a very cool like twist on the whole like linearity of Metroid Fusion.
Yeah. A lot
And
of people complain about that, but
mhm,
honestly, I felt like if they were going to do it right, they did it right in that game.
yeah,
That's
absolutely.
just my opinion, though.
One thing about the linearity of Fusion, I really like. Like Fusion was the first Metroid game I really got into, and I think I was a bit afraid of like the other Metroid games because they were so like open and they didn't really give you a sense of direction. But Fusion, with it being more linear, but it still had those points where you could explore. I really like that, and I think that opened me up to like the other Metroid games, where it was like they sort of eased me into the whole exploration.
Yeah, because because one thing that Fusion did, it still allowed you to explore wherever you wanted to go.
Hmm.
You didn't have to go straight to the objective. You could go and explore rooms above the objective and find goodies and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
that taught you, and that I think, in a sense, opened you to other Metroid games because Zero Mission kind of did the same thing.
Hmm. Yeah, they pointed where you need to go,
They
but
pointed you where you need to go, but you could go there whenever you want. You just have to go and explore everything else if you want to go do that. And that's another reason why I like it. If I felt like what the best remake of a game was, I would say Zero Mission would
hmm,
be up there along with another game. One of my favorite games is Pokemon Soul Silver version. That was a wonderful remake in my opinion, but
yeah,
Zero Mission would be up there with that
hmm,
because one thing I didn't like about the original Metroid was I didn't like how hard it was to get into. Like one
hmm,
thing I liked about
definitely,
it was really one thing I didn't like about the original Metroid was it was really, really, really hard to get into because all the rooms were the same and there was no map. And if you died, you had to put in password system. And I know that's NES days, and that's like asking a lot, but
yeah, I guess, but still,
it kind of aged really badly in
hmm,
my opinion. And when they did the remake with Zero Mission, I felt like that was the breath of fresh air that it needed to
yes,
revitalize and make me want to go play it again. And that's why I like Zero Mission a lot. It's really what I needed from Metroid One.
hmm,
And
absolutely. I guess a little blasphemous of me. I never finished the original NES Metroid, but at the same time, Zero Mission is surpasses it in every way, so I feel that's okay.
I wouldn't feel so bad about it because it's really hard to finish the original
Hmm.
Metroid. So
Because it's like there's when you play Fusion and Super Metroid and all the others, and then you go back to the first one, it's like there's no map. There's nowhere to know where
you
to
have to go
go.
look it up online and have a
Hmm.
map with you while you're playing it because it's kind of really hard to
Yeah,
just, get into it.
and then it's like they expect you to sort of like remember every layout, remember the like where you've been, and you know the whole thing of like, oh, I got a new item, maybe I can use it in previous location. But I think that's kind of hard because a lot of the stuff in the first Metroid looked the same, which is kind of annoying.
Yeah, well, another thing I didn't like about the other Metroid, and I know it's that it's like I'm beating up an old game that at the time was very innovative, and I'm sorry about that if that offends anybody. But one thing I didn't like about Metroid was uh the beams like in later games they started to stack on each other.
Hmm.
Like if you got the ice beam and then you got the wave beam, your beam would have both properties of the ice beam and wave beam.
Yeah.
And the original Metroid didn't do that. If you got the ice beam, you would lose your wave beam. You'd have to
Hmm.
go find the wave beam again to get the wave beam.
Yeah, and that's kind of annoying too, because I mean, there's no real explanation. I mean, you need the ice beam if you want to defeat the Metroids.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a sort of like annoying thing where it's like, oh, I picked up the wave beam, but then your ice properties are gone, and that's the worst in a sense. Well,
Yeah,
not literally the worst, but it's a dick move.
pretty much.
Yeah.
But um, Metroid 2, The Return of Samus had the same problem in
Mm,
a sense where, like, my issue with Metroid 2 was I just felt like it had another one of those syndromes of, well, it didn't have a map. So you have to have a map open in order to do that. But another thing that kind of irritated me about it was I didn't like the screen crunch as much.
hmm.
Samus was way too big on the screen. So trying to see everything coming at you was really difficult.
Yeah.
But other than that, one thing I liked about it was they did introduce the save feature.
Uh huh.
So if you saved, you saved. You didn't have to. If you died, you start back at the save point. If you didn't die, or you didn't have to put in some password to continue like the
Mhm.
original did, which
That's
that was a
really.
very good
Mhm.
improvement and everything.
I think that's really nice too because I can't imagine how long the pass would have been because it had to remember which Metroids you've killed and like which power ups you picked up and stuff like that.
Hmm.
It would be
Yeah.
crazy. One thing I did like about Metroid 2 though is that it also introduced the spider ball, which in that
Yeah.
game was broken as hell because you could go up any wall.
Yeah.
Whereas they perfected that in Prime, I think, where it
In
was
the Prime games, yeah.
where you had magnetic rails and such. But I would like to see the return of the spider ball in a 2D Metroid. I think that would be pretty neat.
Um, but going back on topic about my favorite games and everything, I know we keep going back and forth between other games and everything,
But Metroid.
but Metroid Fusion was my first one that I played, and honestly, it made me really appreciate the type of gameplay. And I know people don't like using this word, Metroidvania games are,
Yeah.
in that it was not only that, it that made me really like that style of gameplay as my favorite type of gameplay to play, but other games like uh Castlevania Circle of the Moon was my first Castlevania game, and it was a Metroidvania game. And it made me really appreciate that style of gameplay. And that's why I really like Metroid and Castlevania a lot.
Yeah. I have to say, like, of my top, like, favorite sort of game franchises, both Metroid and Castlevania are very high up
Yeah.
because they
Um,
both offer that, like, exploration. I like the Metroidvania, Castlevania games a bit more because I love the whole like RPG elements and
mhm.
having a bunch of different weapons and stuff, which is neat. Even though
Yeah.
Metroid offers that too, but I think Castlevania just does it on a deeper level, which is fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so well, I mean, I guess I was gonna ask you what your favorite 3D Metroid game is, but I guess you said Prime, so
I
you
would
know.
have to say Prime because I play okay. I think there's only like what? There's one, two, three, four, five. There's five 3D Metroids.
Five?
Yeah, there's Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3, and then there's Prime Hunters,
Oh
and
yeah,
then
the
there's
Hunters.
there's Other M.
Other
Um,
we don't talk about that one.
I didn't think it was that bad. I think
Well,
people are
I
complaining
don't
way too
know.
much about that game.
Other M for me, like the combat and stuff is very spectacular. It looks very cool, but gameplay wise, you're just like mashing the directional keys to dodge everything. The story definitely I didn't really like. I don't
That's the
know.
only bad thing about that game, in my opinion, was the story. I
Yeah.
actually no, that's a complete lie. There's another thing I didn't like about that game. I did not like. I think there was only two things I didn't like about Prime, or not Prime,
Other M.
Other M. There's only two things I didn't like about Other M, and it still didn't hinder me in saying it's like the worst game in the franchise. I still hold that candle, in my opinion, to Prime Hunters as the worst game in the franchise. But
Well, yeah.
um,
Fair enough. Actually, Prime Hunters isn't very good.
Other M wasn't as bad as everybody thinks it is. Like it's bad in story department, but I don't play Metroid games for story.
Fair
I
enough.
like the lore of Metroid, but I like you know what it is, which is exploration and stuff like that, getting power ups, getting new upgrades and everything. That's why I play Metroid, and I like it because of that. Um, Other M, the other thing that I didn't like about it was when you have to use your missiles, you point the Wiimote at the screen, and you're pretty
Yes.
much vulnerable at that point. That's the only thing I didn't like about that. I
Yeah.
didn't like it too much. I think that they could have not used that.
Yeah,
Just
definitely agree. It would have been nice if you could use a nunchuck or something, and then use a button to go into missile mode, or if you could
yeah,
use the classic controller or something like that. I don't
yeah, the
know.
classic controller would have worked fine on that. But um, I didn't think Other M was that bad. Why I think Hunters is probably the worst is pretty much it's forgettable to me.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
really forgettable. I completely forgot. And that's one thing that a lot of people is like, oh yeah, I forgot that Metroid Prime Hunters is a game. That's what I'm talking about. It's really forgettable. Um, I didn't like the control scheme as much. I didn't think that using the touchscreen was a very good, effective way to
Yeah,
control first-person Metroid.
it was uh it was weird too, because I'm left-handed, and you know, if you want to play
Yeah,
it left-handed, you have to use the face buttons to move, which is really awkward because they don't feel
yeah.
good to move with.
No, they don't, and
Mm.
it was so weird. Um, I didn't like how repetitive it was. That's probably the most repetitive Metroid game I think I've ever played.
Like
Um,
every boss encounter is basically the same.
every boss encounter is the same,
Hmm.
and except for the final boss. But
Yeah.
other than that, it's just like I played Metroid Prime Hunters and I beat it 100% and everything. But it's just like I can't say I would ever want to desire to go back to it. I guess in a way,
Yeah,
it's just like
that's
I didn't think it was that great.
yeah. Now that thinking about it, I don't know. I never even finished it. I just sort of got bored because it was like you did the same thing on every planet.
Oh, just to edit the video a little bit, just be like, oh well, we had an interruption. That's
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah, I did that. I had one in another podcast. Anyways, we were talking about Metroid Prime Hunters.
I just, but yeah, I just couldn't see myself going back and playing it. Like it was that forgettable, and it's just that's what I deem as the worst in the series.
Hmm. I think uh, there's a quote, or quote unquote, he's from a guy I follow on YouTube. He's Swedish, but I think he said the worst thing is like not being a bad, or like making a product that's bad. It's making a product that's just like mediocre. Because if it's really bad, you'll remember it because it's garbage. And if it's
Yeah,
really good, you remember it because it's fantastic. But if it's just like run of the mill mediocre, or doesn't have anything that stands out, you'll forget about it.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like people say is like, oh, Sonic 06 is the worst game I ever played, but you remember it.
Mhm.
It's like that quote from Pirates of the Caribbean. It said, "You are by far the worst pirate I've ever seen,
Mhm.
but you've heard of me."
Yes. Yeah.
That's the thing. It's just like, yeah, people say, "Oh, these are terrible games." People remember Other M because people hate it.
Mhm.
Back on topic here, people say Other M is the worst game ever, but people still go out and buy it because they have to experience it for themselves.
Mhm. And it's like people are exactly. They go out and they're like, it can't be that bad, can it? It's a Metroid game, right? And then they play it and confirm their doubts, or whatever. But they still fill the pockets of Nintendo by doing that.
Yeah.
Whereas with like Hunters, it's like, I don't know. I mean, the only thing like I remember from Hunters was I played multiplayer on it like once, and then.
Yeah, the online multiplayer, but that was before I had internet on
Mhm.
at my house. So I didn't even play the multiplayer.
Yeah.
That was the biggest like selling point of that game too was the online multiplayer. But I
Mhm.
didn't, me as a person who hasn't didn't have internet back then, you know, how is that a selling point to me?
Yeah. Yeah. True. True. Definitely. Which I don't know. I think like now that I think about it, the whole like Hunters thing actually reminds me a bit of like Splatoon, where the multiplayer is the selling point, but they still
Yeah,
have a single player component. But at least in this case, I guess Nintendo wised up because the single player in Splatoon is really good.
yeah, it is really good. I actually had the game myself,
Hmm.
and I've been playing it a lot, and it's really fun. And
Yeah.
it's just like I can see people doing, a playthrough of Splatoon,
Hmm.
and
Definitely.
it would be worth it. It's just like it's not forgettable.
Hmm.
That's the thing. Splatoon wasn't forgettable. I can't. see myself forgetting about it because it wasn't mediocre. It was
Mm.
fantastic.
Yeah, it has a really good single player. The music is fantastic. The levels and stuff. It reminds me a lot of Super Mario Galaxy in that each level is very short, but it's also focused on like a single gimmick, which
Yeah.
a lot of fun. But getting a bit off topic, yes, we're supposed to discuss Metroid.
Um,
I guess.
but
Well, did you have something to say?
well, it's just it goes like I said back when we were saying is Other M is not to me it's not as bad as Hunters, and I that's my reasons for it. It's just you can sure you say the story sucks, but like I
Mm-hmm.
said before, I don't play Metroid games for story. I like the lore of Metroid. I've always loved the lore of Metroid,
Mm-hmm.
but and there's a lot of continuity issues with the game, and people saying, "Oh well, uh, why did Samus act the way she did when she saw Ridley
Mm-hmm.
in the
Yeah.
Other M when she already killed him like I don't know 3 times beforehand?"
And it's
I'm
supposed to
just like,
like it's supposed to connect to the manga or something. I don't know.
that's the thing. The game isn't based on the story of the games. Well, it is, but
Mm-hmm.
it isn't. It's more of a manga rendition of Metroid, from the manga.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
just that's what people need to realize. It's just like it's not really up there with continuity issues. Like it
Definitely.
has continuity issues, but there's a reason behind that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like it's not stupid because of it. It's just Team Ninja was behind that game and they were just, using another reference point rather than, looking at the games themselves.
Yeah.
Does that make it a bad game? No, it just takes it from a different perspective.
I think at least one thing you can do with Other M is that you can laugh at kind of how silly the story is in terms of it being a Metroid game and stuff like
Yeah.
that. How Samus is depicted as this like weak character who uh, doesn't who takes like a bunch of shit from commanding officers, stuff like that.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, that's the thing. It's just like everybody brings that up too. And I'm just like, well, if you play Fusion,
Mm-hmm.
it explains it too. It
Yeah,
explains that, she did that too.
yeah, and
And so I don't
it's
understand why everybody's like, oh, she's taking the commanding officer. It doesn't matter if it was a man or a woman. That was his she respected Adam for
mhm.
what he was.
Yeah,
And if you call that, being out of character, I'd say that's probably the most honorable thing to do is respecting a person on their authority, on what they were and everything. Everybody's like, "Oh, well, that's so out of character for her." And I'm just like, she didn't have a character to begin with.
hmm
She just was a bounty hunter.
yeah. I think
She never had a voice. That's like saying, "Oh, that's so out of character for Link to say that." I'm just like, he didn't have a voice.
oh, yeah, that's a really good point actually. I
It's
think
just like Samus didn't really have a character to begin with. All she was a person that went and did missions for the Federation. That's all she did.
mhm. Yeah, I think like if you look at it, because I mean Samus has her like monologues in Fusion as well, and they're very similar to what how she acts in Other M as well.
Not as bad as Other M,
Well,
but
not as bad, but it's definitely like you can
the thing
see.
is, though, she didn't have a voice. That's the problem.
Yeah,
In
I get.
Fusion, she didn't have a voice. I think what really tore Other M's story part was the fact that they got probably the worst person to voice Samus.
It sounds like so monotone, like no
Yeah,
emotion, none.
exactly. And that's probably what killed it for me is like they got the worst person to voice act Samus.
Yeah.
If they, my honest opinion, they should have kept her silent, but
Eh,
they could have just taken the Legend of Zelda approach and just text read everything.
yeah, definitely. But
But
they.
no, they had to have voice actors, and voice actresses. But that's just my opinion. If they didn't have voices, I think it would have been it would have been somewhat more tolerable. I think
Definitely.
that that's really what killed the game is the voice acting and cast that they did.
Hmm.
Because the person that they had for Samus was probably the worst person they could have for Samus.
Yeah, I've heard I can't confirm these sources, but I've heard from people that that when Sakamoto worked with the actress for Samus, that was like intentional that she was supposed to sound, very boring and monotone. But again, I can't confirm. This is just stuff I've like heard from others.
Well, if that's what the way they were going, they certainly got their feedback on how they felt about it. So
Yeah, definitely.
I honestly think Other M isn't like it isn't great, but it's not wonderful. Or it isn't great,
It's
but it isn't bad. I'm sorry, that's what I meant to say.
it isn't
I think
terrible.
it isn't terrible like
It
everybody
does
says
have
it
its
is, in my
merits.
opinion.
It's
It's just
like gameplay wise, it's very cool to see the speed booster in 3D, and, stuff like
yeah.
that. I thought
I've
that
been
was
waiting
really
for
neat.
that. I was hoping, and this is something I discussed with a friend the other day. It's like I know why they took it. They replaced the speed booster
With
in
the
Metroid Prime
with the
with this
boost
boost
ball,
ball
yeah,
because I understand why they did that is because it would be hard to do the speed booster in first person like that.
yeah. And if you think about it, looking at Prime, uh, like a lot of the places or the environments in Prime doesn't really have a lot of like running room to say.
It's not like a gigantic room with long hallways.
Yeah,
Um, I think, and honestly, I don't. I take back what I said about it would have been hard to do the speed booster in first person because what they could have done is they did what they did with the screw attack in Prime 2 and just changed
yeah.
the perspective while it's activated.
But at the same time, you'd have to wonder how would you like input that? Would it activate after just running for a little bit, or would you have to make a dedicated running button for that?
Probably. It'd probably have to be a
Yeah,
run button or
because
something.
it'd be really annoying if you're just like walking somewhere and then all of a sudden activates,
Yeah.
which
And you
is
don't want to.
which isn't a problem in the fusion games and stuff because there isn't like it takes a while
Const
to activate, so
yeah.
it doesn't become an issue. And there isn't a lot of like places where you can fall down a huge like chasm or stuff like that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just I don't think Other M isn't bad. I think it was good for what they were trying to do, which was an actual legit 3D Metroid game that isn't first person, which was they were trying to do since N64.
Yeah,
And for what they've tried to do, minus, a few hiccups here, I felt like it was superb. If it was on, I don't know, like if they announced a new Metroid game at E3 and they use the gamepad controller or hell the pro controller, I think it can work just fine
yeah,
as long as they get rid of the motion control for the missile shooting. I think we would have a very very good Metroid 3D game.
yeah. Like I'd like to see the same style of Other M, but flesh out the gameplay a bit more so that combat is a little bit more maybe complicated, not as like super easy, and use the gamepad in a nice way. Have the map on there, have item management and stuff.
Yeah, I think it would work. Other M tried and was experimenting with the Metroid going into third person, actual legit this time, and I feel like they were on the right path
Yeah, like
because I liked the gameplay of Other M. I just didn't like certain aspects of it, and I definitely didn't like the story because I just felt like it was stupid. But then again, like I said many times before, I don't play Metroid games for story, so
yeah, definitely. But I think that's another like sort of point of discussion. If we're gonna talk a bit about Metroid Prime, the way the Prime games do lore is definitely like a very high point for me because it's like a Metroid game. It's very light on story, but it still has a very sort of deep story. You can find a lot of information about it in.
yeah, there's a lot of information to be had in Metroid Prime, like with the scan logs and everything. Same with Metroid Prime 2 and Prime 3.
Definitely, I think that's a very interesting way to do a game like that, especially because in previous Metroid titles before the 3D stuff, like you didn't really get a lot of story, and if you're playing Prime and expecting it to be like a Metroid game, you still don't get a lot of story. But there's still a lot
They did
of story.
story in Metroid games. They did story through events that happened in the game. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm talking before prior fusion with the navigation room conversations. I'm having. I'm talking about like I've seen pretty much everything that is about Super Metroid, even though I haven't played it.
Hmm.
But the way the story is described in Super Metroid is through interaction with the player.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
like, when Ridley appears at the beginning of the game and he steals the baby Metroid and you have to fight him, report him, that's how you know, oh, Ridley stole the baby Metroid. And
Yeah.
going back to Zebus to, you know,
Hmm.
to lure Samus to go and find them essentially. And then at the very end of the game with when Mother Brain comes over, well, whenever you're fighting Mother Brain and it looks like you're about ready to lose, the baby Metroid sacrifices itself. It's all
Hmm.
in game. That isn't cutscenes playing. That is in game stuff that's going on.
Hmm.
And
Absolutely.
that's how Metroid just did their story was through in game moments like that.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree, and I feel like, again, with Ridley like stealing the baby Metroid, after you beat Ridley, you sort of expect to find a baby Metroid, but then you go to the
And
room
then you go in
past
the
that.
room up there. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not there.
yeah, it's not
Yeah,
there. You see like the capsule,
that's another
but
thing.
it's not there. So,
You know that the baby Metroid is
hmm.
still gone. And
Hmm.
then when you go to Torian, I think that's how you say it. I
Yeah,
can't. I've
Torian.
always, yeah, Torian. And you go in there, and then you see the gigantic Metroid about ready to grab a hold of you, and it's starting to drain your energy. But right when you get to 1 HP,
Hmm.
the baby Metroid realizes, oh, that's Samus. That's my mother. This is all in-game stuff, and that's
Yeah,
how it described the story. And that's how I like it when it doesn't do that. When
hmm.
it does it like that.
Yeah. Environmental storytelling is definitely like a huge key aspect of a Metroid game, which I guess is, I mean, Fusion still sort of broke the mold of that, and Other M as well. But they still had, like in Fusion, especially with the when you see Nightmare in the background of Sector 5, I think is the
Yeah,
I
Sector 5.
yeah, and then you see that and you're like, what is that? And then later on you find out, through text that, oh, that's an like
You
experiment.
wanted to know what that
Uh
was
huh.
flying in the background.
Exactly. It was like crazy, but and then yeah, which
And
is
then whenever you go into the reactor room, the main reactor core portion of the space station,
hmm.
and you see it clogged with vegetation, and you're like, I wonder what did that. And then you go into Sector 2, and then you find out, oh, this is the source of that vegetation that was clogging everything.
Hmm. Absolutely, and even
It
like
uses
yeah, and even early on in Sector 2, you can still see some of that vegetation, so you know that there's a
there's
bit
a looming threat.
that there's a bigger like amount of vegetation in a certain part of that sector, which is pretty cool. And
Yeah.
then Prime does it as well, I guess. I mean, it's more explicit in Prime. They have
Prime, the only thing that Prime did, and I can't really Prime used cutscenes, like little
yeah.
many miniature cutscenes to tell, what's going on with everything, and it kind of broke the mold out of that.
Mm.
I can't. I think Prime 2 and Prime 2 and Prime 3 did the same thing.
Well, Prime 3, I think,
They actually had
went the
textile.
furthest, where they had like, oh, they have this supporting cast of characters, and there's a lot of like talking to other characters, and it's like, oh,
Granted, Prime
Samus.
2 started the whole dialogue thing that Fusion was doing with
Hmm.
when you went to go talk to Umos
Hmm.
every time after you cleared a portion of ether. But
Yeah, definitely. And then Prime 3 sort of just like, oh, here are a bunch of other bounty hunters. They are doing this, and we're gonna talk to you between every encounter on the planet, and
yeah,
stuff
pretty
like that.
much.
Which
Yeah,
is kind of the reason I like Prime 1 the most, because it feels like it. I think,
Metroid game.
yeah, it feels the most like what a Metro game would be in 3D, or in like first person.
Yeah, I would have to say that too because Prime had it didn't have any dialogue whatsoever in the game,
No.
and I there is no dialogue besides data scan entries and stuff like that that I
Hmm.
can think of.
Yeah.
So it had the more Metroid-esque like to it, even though in my opinion, Prime 2 isn't that bad. Like a lot of people give Prime 2 a lot of flack too,
Yeah.
and it's just like I don't think it's that bad.
I agree,
Everybody
definitely.
complains it's like, oh, it has Dark World. I said, well, Link to the Past has Dark World,
Yeah.
but everybody praises that game.
Hmm. I think a lot of complaints about the Prime 2 come from like Prime 2 is definitely better on a second playthrough when you know where you're supposed to go.
Yeah,
Because on the
Prime
first
2
playthrough you
is
get confused and it's like, oh, you have these light zones that slowly restore health, and you know you lose health if you're in the you know outside the zones and stuff like that, and that I guess pisses some people off. But then you also realize that you can shoot crates and stuff to get life back much quicker, so you can you can still be on the move all the time. You don't have to stop in a safe zone just to get
no.
health back.
Prime Two's biggest complaint that I can think I've heard anyways is it has a really big difficulty spike,
Hmm.
which it does,
Yeah.
but I mean, so did Fusion. Fusion had a big difficulty spike too.
Yeah, with the being chased by the SAX and then
Well, that and if you, I don't know if anybody's noticed this, but whenever you take damage in Fusion, it's a lot more than previous entries. You
uh-huh,
take a lot more
definitely.
damage than normal.
Yeah, and then like fighting Nightmare is also kind of annoying because I mean,
He takes a lot of hits.
yeah, he takes a lot of hits, and then he's kind of gruesome. Yeah, but Prime 2, I don't know. There's a lot of complaints about it, but at the same time,
I can say the only complaint I had with it, and I understand why they did that, is I didn't like the ammo system on the
mhm,
beams. That's
yeah,
it.
I I didn't like that too much either, but I still understand why they would do it, or it was a new concept and such, but it also let them toy around with having some weapons being stronger than others, and,
Hmm.
making it more a thing of trying different weapons on different enemies to see what's the most conservative way to get through certain sections of the game.
I will say that some of the bosses in Prime 2 were really, really freaking difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at two bosses in particular. I'm looking at the Boost Guardian and the Spider Guardian.
Huh. Yeah, the
Boost
Boost Guardian
Guardian
definitely. I don't
was
know. I didn't have.
hard because the Boost Guardian was hard because it you didn't have any safe zones to fight in.
Mm-hmm,
So if you were slowly sapping health the whole entire time.
mm-hmm. And that's no, that's is that before? No, it's after you get the dark suit. It must be.
Yeah, it's after you get the dark
Uh
suit.
huh.
Um,
Otherwise, it would have been impossible.
uh-huh.
Yeah, but I feel like another part of the Boost Guardian too is that they don't really tell you what to do with him, because at one point when you've sapped some of his health, he becomes to sort of like a goo on the ground, and you're supposed to use morphball
More
bombs.
bombs,
Yeah,
the
but
amount.
there's nothing really telling you to do that, and then it's like a lot of people die because he's just like goop on the ground, and you can't really hurt him because you don't. There's no real way to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spider Ball, I just felt like that was way too gimmicky to me.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
Spider Ball Guardian trying to get him to go into uh the little bombs that happen and so trying to make it and change his path on the Spider Ball tracks to the bombs. That was hard.
Mm-hmm.
One thing in particular, I was playing GameCube version. If you played the Metroid Prime trilogy version
I
of
played
that game,
I played both the GameCube and the trilogy version actually.
okay, all right, good.
Yeah.
But GameCube version is a nightmare because you don't get Spring Ball like you do in
Mhm.
the
Yeah,
trilogy version.
which is super annoying because then you have to time your bomb jumps and stuff, and yeah, makes the Spider Guardian harder just because you don't have a good
Yeah,
way to jump up on
jump
platforms.
up and do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty much it. Uh, but yeah, that's pretty much like the two big bosses that gave me trouble
Hmm.
when I played that
I think
game.
I think Like there was a boss that didn't give me a lot of trouble, but the Shaika or Shika, however you choose to pronounce
Chica.
it. Yeah,
I think that's called Chica.
yeah. I don't know. He wasn't super difficult, but he took forever to kill because it's like he's there's just times where you can't hurt him, and then there's a lot of like downtime where you're just dodging stuff, and I don't know. It wasn't hard. He just took a lot of time. I don't know. I didn't like that a lot. But then the other Prime 2, in my opinion, also has some of the like best bosses of the Prime games, like Quadraxis and I guess the Dark Samus fights are pretty hectic and
Yeah.
very fun. And then yeah, I don't know. There was one thing I wanted to sort of briefly talk about. I guess the difference between the Prime trilogy, the Wii versions, and the GameCube versions. If you,
I I have I honestly think that I like having I have the Prime Trilogy version.
Mhm.
I went out and seeked it out because I felt like that was the best thing that came out on the Wii
Yeah,
was Prime Trilogy version, which I just well besides Xenoblade Chronicles obviously, but
mhm.
um I honestly think that the way Prime 3 did the control scheme with the shooting mechanics, I felt like in a sense that helped it out because
Mhm.
like one thing that really bothered me when I played Prime games, even though they were really good control wise, was trying to aim for certain things. And with the introduction of motion control, I felt like it helped a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
So adding a collection of all three Prime games using Prime Three's control scheme, I felt in a way that helped a lot. Not only that, that game or that collection of games added achievements to it,
Mhm.
which I'm a sucker for. I've always been a sucker for achievements in games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that helped it with being a selling point to me as well.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I felt in that way, if you want to play the Prime games and uh like nowadays, I would honestly suggest the trilogy version. The
Yeah,
trilogy version
and
is
it's
probably
also
the definitive version of all the games in the series.
mhm. And it's also available on the Wii U now for a discount price, which is very nice because it's very hard to get on the Wii.
Yeah, it's like $10, I think.
Yeah, and that's
No, no, it's not. It's more than that. It's like
uh,
20, I think.
I think it's 20. I think it was 10 the like opening week, and then
Yeah, I'm
it went
sorry, I
back.
misspoke.
Ah, dude, it's fine. Uh, I have a bit of a controversial opinion actually. I think that the first Prime game, which I recently played through just because I wanted to do 100%, I think that one, I like the GameCube controls more for that one actually, for the first one.
That's fine.
Which,
I had no problem with the GameCube
mhm,
controls. I just think that the Wii remote motion control is a little bit
yeah.
better, in my opinion. But
But I think it's also because like the first Prime game and the second one, I guess, were designed with the GameCube in mind. So when they
hmm
remade it for the with the Wii controls, I feel like a lot of the some of the game design like it became easier because you had more freedom to aim and such. Which it's a great control scheme with the Wiimote and nunchuck, but at the same time, I think it lost a bit of like difficulty in that you were much more mobile and you could
yeah,
aim everywhere. So I like the GameCube controls better for Prime 1. Prime 2, I don't know, it's already really difficult, so the motion controls help there a lot.
yeah, they helped Prime 2 if you want probably the best version to play is the
The
Wii version.
the trilogy
It
version,
makes it
yeah.
if it's really difficult. The game itself is really difficult,
Hmm.
so it helps a lot whenever it's like scaled down a little bit because of that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Uh, hmm. Yeah. Wow. I don't know. I don't really. I don't know. Do we have more to talk about? I mean, I think we
I think Prime 3 is the only thing I have left to cover, really.
yeah, we haven't talked. Prime Free. I don't know. I liked it. It wasn't.
I liked it a lot
Yeah.
because they went back to doing something that Metroid was known for in a lot of sense. You know, one thing that I didn't mind the not island hopping, planet hopping. I didn't mind
Hmm.
that at all. It just in my eyes, it was pretty much the same as going from different portion of the planet to different portion of the planet, and
Uh-huh.
in
Yeah,
the other ones.
in Prime 1 and 2.
Um, I did like that they went back to stacking beams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I liked how they went back to doing that, and that made me happy because I didn't have to, switch between
Mm-hmm.
beams on the fly all the time. I
I
didn't I didn't care for it too much, but I
mm,
liked it having stack.
yeah.
Uh, I did like I did like the introduction of hyper mode because we didn't see that since Prime 1, obviously,
Prime
and that
1.
was like
Yeah.
during the final boss only.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing that come back was really neat, and I like that.
Yeah.
Uh, the only little complaint I have about Prime 3 would be it was a little bit easier than the other ones.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I can agree there. As for the beam stacking, I like that they brought it back because it's kind of like, oh, it reminds you of the older Metroid games. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I think that having the beam stack also, because I liked in Prime 1 where each of the four beams were like wildly different from each other. They all had, different firing speeds and stuff. Whereas, when you have stackable beams, they all have to have the same firing speed and stuff like that. So you could have the plasma beam in Prime 3 where you could just like tap the button rapidly and you'd shoot like a fucking machine gun. Which it's still good. It's a lot of fun. I mean, the Nova beam is definitely one of the prettiest beams of the Prime games in
Love
my
that
opinion.
Nova beam.
Yeah, it's really cool, especially the charging and stuff. And then also, I guess something lost is the fact that Samus's arm or the cannon looks different with each beam, but I don't know. You don't really pay too much attention to that. And then you just play the game in X-ray mode anyway, so you just see the cool skeleton hand.
I always loved that little that was
Hmm.
a cool little attention to detail right
Yeah,
there.
I love that.
Like
Also,
X-ray visor.
hmm
You had it in Prime 1, but you missed the opportunity to use it like that.
hmm but then in Prime 3, they really realized it because, you could see stuff in the X-ray. So in Prime 1, you barely see anything.
Yeah.
It was like really
But
hard to see.
it's funny though. It's like seeing your hand. It's just like,
Hmm
I got a skeleton hand now.
hmm I think that was one of the cool things they did attention to detail in Prime 1 too, is that each beam had Samus like different hand symbols,
Hmm.
which is and I'm not sure, but I think that when you switch beams with the X visor on, you would see that she changed her hand position too. And one of the funniest things that I noticed in my recent playthrough of Prime 1 is that the wave beam actually has Samus like holding her hand as if she's waving. I I think that's really
That is
funny.
attention to detail right there. Like,
Yeah.
hey, wave beam, get it? Wave.
Yeah, I thought that was like really funny. Like I don't know if it's intentional, but if it was, great kudos to them because that's like the funniest thing I found in my last playthrough. But yeah, I guess we've sort of gushed on Metroid for the past hour.
I guess the only thing left to talk about is Metroid Prime Pinball.
Oh yay, which is
The
just a
pinball game. It's
yeah.
it's a pinball game. That's all it is. The
Uh-huh.
boss fights are pretty cool though in that
hmm
game.
I
So
like. I mean, I like. I didn't. Well, I. Oh, hold on. I did play it, but like very briefly. I didn't play a lot of it, but from what I've seen, it does the best it can in reimagining Prime 1 into a pinball game. It does have the bosses. It does have the worlds, stuff like that, and I think that's pretty neat. It's like they did a similar thing with they had a Super Mario pinball game as well, and even that was very enjoyable because
mhm.
they did a lot of recognizable stuff from the Mario universe, except
Yeah.
in pinball form.
Yeah, in pinball form.
Yeah,
But
just pretty neat.
honestly, like that's like the only other Metroid game I can think of I can't think of any other Metroid game. We pretty much touched up on everything. I touched up on Super Metroid, even though I haven't played it too much.
Yeah.
Super Metroid was, I, from what I've seen, it's very floaty and it's really like probably like it aged really well.
It aged
Out of all
super
of the
well.
Metroid games, that one's probably the one that aged the best
Yeah.
with Super Metroid.
Super Metroid was definitely like one of those that I it was like the first one I wanted to play after finishing Fusion and Prime, because it's like it still looks great, it plays great, it also has a lot of power ups that a lot of like the other 2D Metroid games don't have. Like Super Metroid has the grapple beam, which is really neat because you can see how it works in 2D.
Yeah.
And it also has the X-ray visor, which is kind of useless, but you know it's still a fun, cool, gimmicky little thing to use.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I love Metroid. I hope that they announce something Metroid related at E3
I hope so
in the
too.
coming weeks. It would be really cool to see a like fully realized Wii U Metroid game with like, I mean, I know graphics aren't a huge thing in Metroid games, but if they could make it look, you know, amazing in Metroid
If
terms.
they can make a Metroid game where it's like other M with the way it is, but better control scheme and not using motion control for missiles and stuff
Hmm.
like that, I think they get something like that and
Yeah,
probably make it more open. There you go.
yeah,
That's probably the ideal Metroid game
yeah.
is touch up on the gameplay of other M, but and don't include some things that fans didn't like, and make it more open, make it not as linear as the other ones. I
Hmm.
think you got yourself a best, probably a contender for best Metroid game.
Hmm. And you know, I absolutely agree. You know, and then maybe not as much focus on like cutscenes and having a very linear storytelling, but you know, offering more lore through the worlds, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess that's sort of the end of this podcast. I'd like to thank you for being on, and you know, it was a
Well,
lot of fun.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'll be uploading this to YouTube on Wednesday probably,
Okay.
and you know, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really, really did enjoy talking about this. This is about a franchise I love to death. So,
Hmm. Absolutely. So you know, bye bye.
all right. Bye, guys.
Bye.